gotta be, I gotta be.
Hi, this is Ben Hart. One of the most important skills for having a successful and happy life is being likable. People who are likable tend to be far more successful in life than people who are loners, unfriendly, who are unhappy, who are bullies, who are shy, who are cranky, who are socially awkward, who are snarky, selfish, surly, gossipy, lazy, nasty, unsympathetic, or insecure. And this is just not my own observation. The research confirms the fact that the most likable people tend to be the most successful. For example, the Gallup organization conducted a study of the kind of candidate who wins presidential elections. In almost every election since 1960, well, pretty much every election with the exception of Richard Nixon in 1968 and 1972, the most likable candidate won. Nixon was able to overcome his lack of likability in 1968 and 1972 by exuding competence and knowledge. Clearly, both Hubert Humphrey and George McGovern were more likable than Nixon as people. But people believed that Nixon was the most competent and really understood the job. So people elected Nixon twice, even though they really didn't like him that much as a person. But Richard Nixon was the exception. The rule is that the most accurate predictor of who will win the presidential election is who the voters see as more likable. JFK, John F. Kennedy, was more likable than Nixon in 1960. Jimmy Carter really had no qualifications for the job of president, but he won over the sitting president, Gerald Ford, because Carter was more likable. Ronald Reagan was among the most liked presidents in modern history. Even those who disagreed with Ronald Reagan liked him, and he won 2 landslide election victories. Bill Clinton was also very likable. He defeated George Herbert Walker Bush in 1992, not because people disliked Bush, but they saw Bush as somewhat detached and a bit aloof. Bill Clinton went on to win re-election in 1996 by defeating the notoriously cranky Bob Dole. George W. Bush was more likable than either Al Gore in 2000 or John Kerry in the 2004 presidential election. Al Gore should have won in 2000. The economy then was booming, and he was the sitting vice president, but he just wasn't very likable. In the 2012 election, polls told us that more voters agreed with Mitt Romney's economic policies than with Barack Obama's, and more than half the voters wanted Obamacare repealed. Most voters were more in alignment with Mitt Romney's political philosophy than with Barack Obama's. But polls showed that Obama won the election primarily because he was more likable than Mitt Romney. Not that people disliked Romney or thought he wasn't a good guy, but they did not see him as in touch with their world, with their concerns and worries. He did not come across as empathetic. Now, the all-time world champion at coming across as empathetic was Bill Clinton. He was famous for saying, "I feel your pain." He was always saying words to that effect. I once met President Clinton at a reception. Now, I never voted for Bill Clinton. I'm a Republican. In fact, I've done a lot of speech writing and fundraising for the Republican side. But Bill Clinton, even though he knew I was a Republican, treated me like I was his best friend. He didn't just shake my hand when he talked to me. He also put the other hand on my shoulder and looked me straight in the eye while talking to me. He even asked me my opinion of his speech. He said he thought there was a lot in the speech that I would like. Bill Clinton was a master politician. He made everyone he came into contact with feel like they were his best friend. Now, you might think it's phony to act that way. Well, I don't think it's phony in the case of Bill Clinton. I think that's really who Bill Clinton is. He wants to be liked. He wants everyone, even somebody like me, who he knew would never vote for him, to like him anyway. And I do like Bill Clinton. I would love to have dinner with Bill Clinton or play a round of golf with Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton is just someone that everyone likes to be around. And it's Bill Clinton's personality that is a big factor, probably the big factor, in his political success. A Columbia University study by psychology professor Melinda Tamkins shows that the most important factor determining success in the workplace is not your intelligence or your skills or even who you know, but whether you are liked by your fellow coworkers. In her study, Professor Tamkins found that workers who were the most liked by their peers were seen as trustworthy, motivated, serious, decisive, and hardworking. And these workers were the ones who received the promotions and the pay raises. Those who were less liked by their peers were perceived as untrustworthy, conniving, manipulative. These people received fewer promotions and pay raises, even if they had superior qualifications and skills. Another study by the University of California reveals that doctors spend significantly more time with patients they like. The result is, the more likable patients receive superior medical treatment. Doctors are more likely to encourage the likable patients to return for checkups, and more likely to return a likable patient's phone calls. And hospital staff will spend more time educating the likable patients than the unlikable patients. A professor of mine at Dartmouth College once pointed out this truth to me as well. He said, "You know, Mr. Hart, it's not the straight-A students who will be tomorrow's captains of industry. It's mostly the B students who will be running things later in life." He said the A students will go on to become professors, researchers, and software engineers, scientists. But they are generally not the ones running the business, or the organization, or even the university. The straight-A student is a straight-A student because they are so into their subject that they scarcely have time for people. So many straight-A students are so into their work, so into their studies, that they don't have time to develop people skills. Now, this is not an argument against getting A's in school, or even straight A's if you can, but it is an argument for making sure that you also develop people skills. When I talk to college admissions directors or employers, the most important question they want answered about a prospective student or an employee is he or she a good person? An employer wants to know, will this person work well in a team? Will this person fit in well with the group? Will we like having this person around? Will we like seeing this person every day? Is this person friendly and outgoing? Will this person brighten up the room just by walking in? This is the kind of person employers want to hire. This is the kind of student colleges want to add to their campuses. And by the way, likable does not mean being a member of the in crowd at school. You might remember the film Mean Girls. This is a movie about the in crowd at school, the supposedly popular people who become part of the in crowd by putting other people down, by doing nasty things to others, by excluding people. I don't mean these kinds of people. I mean the opposite of these kinds of people. In fact, cliquishness is a very undesirable trait. Instead of making the new kid in school feel welcome, cliquish people try to exclude people. Cliquish people are unwelcoming. They are the opposite of likable. So don't confuse being likable with being part of the in crowd. What you want people to think when they see you coming is that you are a really nice kid, always smiling, always friendly, always trying to help, always looking to include others in what you are doing. You are welcoming. You are never putting anyone down. And here's the good news. Being likable might not necessarily come naturally for you, but it is a skill that can be learned. I, for example, have both ADHD and a mild case of Asperger's syndrome. Asperger's is basically a mild form of autism. So if I'm not careful, it's very easy for me to retreat to my own world, just focusing on what I'm doing without concern for what's happening around me. For me, a bomb could go off outside, and I wouldn't hear it if I were absorbed in my work. On the other hand, I also have ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which, in some ways, has the opposite effect of the Asperger's. The ADHD makes it almost impossible for me to pay attention to what someone is saying to me if what they are saying is not all that interesting to me. My eyes will start darting around the room. I won't hear what that person is saying unless I make a conscious decision to focus on what that person is saying, even if I'm not all that interested in what they're talking to me about. Or what sometimes happens is that the person will say something interesting, so then what I'll do is I'll focus thinking entirely on that one interesting thought, that one nugget of information that caught my attention, and I'll mull it over and over again in my mind and pay no attention to the rest of what that person is saying. Again, unless I make a conscious decision not to do that. Well, this professor of mine at Dartmouth also gave me a tip on how to overcome both the Asperger's and the ADHD. He told me he had both these disorders. Many intelligent people do. Probably most entrepreneurs have ADHD. The reason many entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs is that they've probably been fired from the regular jobs that they've had, so had no choice but to become an entrepreneur. And many great scientists, thinkers, artists, writers, innovators, and leaders have had Asperger's syndrome, including Albert Einstein, Beethoven, Mozart, Benjamin Franklin, probably Thomas Jefferson, Henry Ford, Van Gogh, the list goes on. So these so-called disorders are really not such a big deal, but you have to take specific steps to overcome them, or you're probably going to end up a social misfit. And that's not going to help you in life. Because of my Asperger's, my tendency is to be pretty happy being a loner. But I'm not going to get many clients that way. I'm not going to bring in much business that way. I won't be able to close sales and bring in the money that way. And my clients won't be clients long if I come across as distant, aloof, and unconcerned with their problems. So I needed to find a way to overcome my Asperger's syndrome, to become more like Bill Clinton. So what this professor at Dartmouth told me to do was to always carry with me a stack of 3x5 index cards. The index cards look like this and fit easily into your pocket. And when you meet someone new, you take out the index card and you write that person's name down. And when someone you are talking with says something interesting, take out the index card and write down the idea. And do this right in front of the person you are talking with. Not only will doing this help you focus your attention on what that person is telling you, and help you remember what that person told you, but you will be flattering that person. By taking the index card out of your pocket and saying, "That's a great thought, let me write that down," you are telling that person that you consider what they are telling you to be immensely important and worth remembering, worth writing down. No one wants to feel like they are talking to a wall. Everyone hopes that what they are saying is interesting, important, worthwhile. By taking your index card out and actually taking notes on what that person is telling you, you are telling that person that what they are saying is interesting, important, and worthwhile. And you are forcing yourself to be engaged in the conversation, truly, actively engaged. And that's probably the number one factor for being likable. Actively engaging other people in conversation. To be actively engaged, you must listen intently to what the person in front of you is saying. Don't let your mind wander. I have found that always carrying index cards in my pocket so I can take notes on what the other person is saying has been a wonderful device to help make sure that I am actively engaged in the conversation and that my mind does not wander off to la-la land somewhere. So become a great conversationalist. And the key to being a great conversationalist is to listen intently to what the person is saying who is talking to you. Now here's another secret for being a good conversationalist. And that secret is to ask questions. Asking questions is the best way to start a conversation and the best way to keep a conversation going. Let's say you're a boy who wants to start a conversation with a girl in your class who has caught your eye, or you're a girl who wants to start a conversation with a boy you think you might like. The best way to start a conversation is to ask that person a question. Ask a question about something you know that you both have in common, such as, how do you like the teacher? Something innocuous, something non-threatening like that. What questions do is bring forth answers that then provide the triggers for more questions. Now, you don't want to sound like you're conducting an investigation either. The purpose of your questions is to engage that person, to express interest in that person, as a person. People love to be asked their opinion. You could ask a question that might go something like this. I just got these new glasses. I'm not sure I like them. I'm thinking they look a bit dorky. What do you think? If you ask a question like that, this forces the other person to look at your glasses and to look at you. Now, it doesn't have to be your glasses. It could be some other article of clothing or jewelry. The point is to ask their opinion about something. People love to be asked their opinion. And don't be judgmental about the answers you receive to your questions. This Dartmouth professor who gave me the index card tip also disagreed with me about my political and religious beliefs. Basically disagreed with me about almost everything. But we got along very well anyway, despite our spirited debates. For example, he was an agnostic or an atheist. I'm a Christian. So he would argue with me a lot about the existence of God and over whether God's existence can be proven. I would make my point, and he would take out his index card and say, "Very interesting. We'll call your argument the heart theorem. I'll give that some serious thought." In other words, he would not shoot down my argument, but he would usually later come back with a battery of questions. Even though he usually did not agree with what I was saying, he was very respectful and never dismissive. And this is critical to working with others, isn't it? It's really the key to having a conversation. The point of a conversation is not to win some kind of a battle or debate, it's to get to know the person you are talking with. This is how you develop likability. To be liked, you need to know how to start a conversation and how to continue a conversation. You need to become a good conversationalist. The world's greatest ideas and achievements have often come about through conversation. If there is something I want to achieve, what I'll do is put together a meeting of the smartest people I know and have a conversation about it. Have a brainstorming session. And the number one rule of our brainstorming sessions is there are no bad ideas. There are no dumb ideas. Now, we're not going to use every idea. We can't use every idea, but we want to hear everyone's idea. The point is you want to invite the ideas of others and welcome the ideas of others. Not only will this make you more likable, it will also help you achieve great things in life. You can't think of every good idea yourself. More heads working together on the same problem is always better than one. Don't be a loner. Don't shut out the world. There's wisdom in crowds. In fact, there's a great book out titled The Wisdom of Crowds, the subtitle of which is Why the Many Are Smarter Than the Few. The book shows us, with lots of research, how the aggregation, collection of information by groups results in decisions that are almost always better than what could have been produced by any single member of the group. So constantly seeking the opinions of others will not only make you well liked, but your decisions will be so much better than if you were operating in a vacuum. A team produces a better result than a lone wolf. In other words, you don't even need to be especially smart to achieve great things in life. Just solicit the opinions of others, and you'll have more than enough great ideas to act on. So be a team player, be a team builder. Don't pull the wagon all by your lonesome. Inspire as many other people as you can find to help you pull and push the wagon with you. This is how you achieve big things in life, by getting lots of other people involved in what you're doing, by communicating, by drawing them in, by inspiring them to get involved with what you're doing. Now, there's something else that's very important to your success, and that's your demeanor. Are you a cheerful person? Are people happy to see you coming? There are some people who just light up the room when they enter it. People also like those who project confidence. Do you project confidence? Do you look people straight in the eye when you are talking to them? Or do you look down at your feet and try to avoid eye contact? Never do that. People like those who project confidence, not cockiness, but a firm, steady confidence in who you are. Are you someone who is comfortable in your own skin? There's a big difference between confidence and cockiness. People don't like cocky people. People don't like those who boast about themselves. But confident people give others confidence. Would you trust a doctor who is not confident? Would you trust an airline pilot who didn't come across as confident on the intercom system? How would you react if the pilot of the plane you are on comes across the intercom as nervous and unsure of himself? What if the pilot came on the intercom and said, "We're in for a very rough ride, and frankly, I'm just not sure how this is going to turn out"? An announcement like that would likely trigger a full-blown panic among the passengers. You want a confident pilot. You want a confident doctor. People like can-do people. You want to be a confident can-do person. When I was starting my business, my attitude pretty much was to just take on any project I could find, even if it wasn't exactly in my area of specialty. If a client or potential client asked me if I could do something, my answer pretty much was always certainly, absolutely. One of my clients asked me, for example, if I could build him a website. My answer was absolutely, even though I had no idea how to build a website. But I made a decision to learn how to build a website quickly. I bought myself some website building software, the old Microsoft front page program, because it seemed like the easiest one to learn, and I learned how to build a pretty decent website in about a week. I then bought a domain name for this client at GoDaddy.com. I then called GoDaddy's customer service department and asked them how I put this website up on the internet. GoDaddy's customer service rep set me up with a hosting plan and walked me through the steps on how to put up the website, and presto, the site was up. It looked pretty good and my client was very happy with it. So my client had just paid for my education, literally paid me to learn how to build and put up a website. From there, I actually went on to build a highly profitable internet business that generated about $1 million a year in sales. The point is, whenever a client or prospective customer asked me if I could do something, my answer was always, sure, yes, of course, absolutely, no problem, I can do that, even if I really had no idea how to do it. I figured that I could either learn how quickly or find somebody who knew how. My attitude when starting my business was always to look for ways to say yes, not no. My goal was always to be a problem solver for my clients. Some people are problem solvers, others are problem creators. Be a problem solver. Be that can-do person whose first inclination is to say yes, sure, I can help you with that, and say yes with confidence and with a smile. When you walk, don't shuffle along looking down at the floor. Stride forth with confident steps that make you look like you have a valid claim on existence. When you see people, have a smile on your face. Ask them how they're doing. Ask them how their ski trip was. Be conversational. Be confident. Look happy. Look alive. Have energy. Have enthusiasm. I once encountered a cranky worker at McDonald's. I was there ordering breakfast at 7 a.m., and this young lady, she looked like she was maybe 17 or 18 years old. Her name tag told me her name was Heather. She just had a very sour look on her face, and she wasn't the least bit friendly. I asked her if she was having a bad morning. I didn't ask in a confrontational way, I was just curious. But she said, I'm just tired. I said, I'm sure it must be tough getting here at 6 in the morning, so I expressed a certain amount of empathy. But then I said, here's how to think of your job that might give you a fresh perspective. First, you are very fortunate to have this job. There are a lot of people out there who would love to have this job. But more importantly, you are actually the most important person working for McDonald's. Did you know that? Her ears perked up. She finally looked up at me. She said, really? How? Well, because you are the most important person working for the McDonald's Corporation to me and to everyone else you serve here today. You are the only person I will encounter from the McDonald's Corporation today or likely this week. This means you are literally representing the McDonald's Corporation to me and everyone you serve. So this is really not just a job, is it? To me and everyone else you serve today, in this week and this month, you are the McDonald's Corporation. That's what I mean by saying that of the tens of thousands of McDonald's employees out there, you are the most important employee because you are the most important McDonald's employee to me. And she said, I never really thought of my job this way, as something important. I answered that your job is very important, and it's very important that you at least pretend you are happy to see the customer, even if you're not feeling all that good, even if you're feeling tired and not especially thrilled with life that day. Remember, your customers have many choices. They could go to Burger King or to Dunkin' Donuts next door, but they are choosing to come here. And people are much more likely to keep coming here for breakfast if they feel welcome. She thanked me for my little lecture and she apologized. And Heather actually really cleaned up her attitude after that. Whenever I went back to McDonald's, she always greeted me with a smile and said, hello, Mr. Hart. And she did that with me, but with every customer. She moved quickly and with a bounce in her step. She always asked people how they were doing. And soon after that, she received a McDonald's Employee of the Month award. And it wasn't long before she was promoted to assistant manager and was training the new employees. This would not have happened had she continued with her grumpy, low-energy demeanor. People like smiles, high energy, conversational, cheerful people. People want to feel welcome. Conversations can be short. You don't want to be annoying either. But at least say, with a smile, how are you doing today, Mr. Smith? I believe having a great smile is very important. Not that you want a smile permanently plastered on your face like the Joker, That doesn't look real or genuine, but people love to see a smile. A smile indicates approval, indicates happiness, indicates energy and aliveness. If someone smiles at you from across the room, your inclination probably is to make your way over there, to say hello. Barack Obama has a great smile. I believe that's one of the big keys to his success in life. People want to like him, want to think the best of him. Same with Ronald Reagan, same with Bill Clinton. They all had great smiles. What you want to be is a life enhancer, not a well poisoner. I put people essentially into three categories. There's the life enhancer, the lawn mower, and the well poisoner. Most people in life are lawn mowers. These are perfectly good people. They're good citizens. They go to work every day. They pay their taxes and probably vote. They keep their lawns mowed, their homes painted and looking good. Nothing at all wrong with these people. But you don't really notice them. They don't stand out. They're not doing great things in life. The world probably won't miss them much when they're gone. This is what most people are, lawn mowers. And they're a whole lot better than the well poisoners. Well poisoners are people you definitely want to avoid. These are the negative people, the gossips, the people who are always running other people down. They're the complainers, the bellyachers. They're more interested in tearing down than building. Almost always the well poisoner ends up destroying himself, poisoning his own well. Unfortunately, the well poisoner can also take down a lot of other people along the way. What you want to be is a life enhancer. Life enhancers make life better for everyone they come in contact with. They light up every room they enter. They inspire others to become better. For example, there are some great quarterbacks in the NFL who have more than just great football skills. A big part of what makes them great is they make everyone else around them, everyone else on their team, better also. Peyton Manning is a quarterback like that. The opposite of a Peyton Manning is a player like wide receiver Terrell Owens or wide receiver Randy Moss. Terrell Owens and Randy Moss had great athletic talent and skills. They could have been among the greatest wide receivers to ever play the game because of their great athletic talent. The problem was they were well poisoners. They made the players around them worse because of their selfishness and self-centeredness. They sowed dissension, complained all the time. Randy Moss was famous for his surly demeanor and not running his pass patterns at full speed much of the time. Terrell Owens constantly blamed the quarterback for losses and his poor performance. The quarterback was the very person he depended on to throw him the ball. But Owens was often not on speaking terms with his own quarterback. These are not people you want on your team, no matter how great their individual skill level, no matter how great their talent. You would much prefer to have the player who has less talent and less skill, but who raises the level of everyone else's play by his leadership and infectious enthusiasm. Life enhancers are those who bring out the best in everyone they come in contact with. Life enhancers help and encourage others. They teach others. One life enhancer I will never forget was an 11-year-old kid named Pete Murphy. That is, he was 11 at the time and I was 12. So this was in 1970. Both of us were junior ski racers in Vermont. But Pete Murphy was by far the best ski racer his age in America at that point. In fact, he was the best 11-year-old skier in the world. He was winning all of our ski races by 10 seconds. No one our age was even close to this kid. At that point, I was basically a middle-of-the-pack ski racer in Vermont. Pete had no idea who I was. But to me, this kid was like Babe Ruth or Michael Jordan for our age group. He was basically the Tiger Woods of junior ski racing of that era. One day I found myself going up the chairlift with Pete. He was a super nice kid, very friendly, and not the least bit cocky or boasty. I asked him if he would mind if I skied behind him, so that I might be able to learn from him what he was doing that I'm not doing. He said sure, and I ended up skiing all day behind this superstar 11-year-old ski racer, an athlete who I basically idolized. We got along great, and then he asked me suddenly, just out of the blue, if I'd be interested in going out to Colorado with him to ski in some races out there in a couple of weeks. Now, there was a lot of curiosity in Colorado over how their best skier, how the best 12-year-old skier in the West would stack up against Pete Murphy. The kid from the West, the best skier in the West, was a 12-year-old by the name of Billy Griffith. So I said sure, and I got permission from my parents and went to Colorado with Pete and his dad. The huge benefit to me was that I got to ski behind Pete for a solid week. He also gave me all kinds of tips and pointers, plus we just had a blast. Well, Pete, of course, dominated the races out there, just like he was dominating all of our races in Vermont and the East. He beat the West's best 12-year-old skier by a wide margin, 6 seconds or something like that. But I was suddenly consistently finishing in 3rd place in these races, well up from my middle-of-the-pack status, all because of the generosity of that 11-year-old superstar prodigy ski racer, Pete Murphy. This kid was friendly to everyone, always welcoming, smiling, encouraging. He never tried to impress anyone with how cool he was. He always looked to help others become better skiers. Always offered to buy me and the other kids a chocolate milk or a donut in the cafeteria line. I have never met a nicer, more generous 11-year-old in my life. Pete was a life enhancer. Well, for whatever reason, Pete, for some reason, plateaued as a ski racer later. He was still always an outstanding ski racer, was on the U.S. ski team, and was one of the top ski racers in the country and so forth. But others caught up to him as they got older and stronger and kind of figured out what Pete was doing. Well, today, Pete is a very successful entrepreneur in St. Johnsbury, Vermont, where he grew up. He now owns a string of hotels and motels along Interstate 91, and he's become very wealthy. This is what happens to life enhancers. They tend to succeed in life. Be a life enhancer.
Like the pine trees lining the winding road, I've got a name, I've got a name. Like the singing bird and the croaking toad, I've got a name.